Hello and welcome to our Worried About Nothing podcast today. Given the title of our podcast, Worried About Nothing, we thought we would talk about what the mind sometimes can do when it hasn't got anything to worry about and see where it goes. I'm Kim.
I'm Danielle.
And I'm Katya.
And welcome to our show today. Damn it. See, that's what the mind does when it's not concentrating.
Concentration. It seems to elude me a lot. It's funny though, I had a really nice session where I was sitting and I just felt like I could feel really still. Or I could make my mind, it just didn't really feel like it was moving. It was really peaceful and nice. And then of course after that it was like anything but still. Couldn't do anything to make it still. Any types of practices I'm doing, trying to flow, divine love, because it's something that I was working on in a session with Aratima. I can't focus on any of it. And I'm like, well, I just hope that this is part of, God teaching me how to love myself through divine love by loving me while my mind is still as busy as it is. So whether or not that's related is another story, but I just had remembered how still the mind was, and that was so nice.
Yeah, it's definitely lovely when the mind is still. Mine has not been still recently at all, to the point where it's like 100 miles an hour, just galloping around, random thoughts, ridiculous things. Sometimes I'll wake up in the night and it'll be kind of like, did I descale the kettle? Or just ridiculous things. But yeah, it's really kind of hit home to me recently how my mind can be, not always, but can be so active. And it's like I posted in our Wisdom Life School Facebook group. And it was this long convoluted post, and Aratima commented and said, yes, your mind has a tendency to be very busy or something like that. And it's true, because sometimes when my mind goes off on these tangents, it's like I forget it's my mind and it's just thoughts. And I'll be very, very intensely kind of involved in the thought. It'll be, oh, right, that just came to me. It must be true. Whereas it's my mind galloping around going, okay, gather information, put it all together in a way that seems really, really genuine. There we go. We'll present it that way. And Kim will go, oh, brilliant. Yeah, inspiration just hit, When in reality, it's nothing of the sort. But I think, like you were saying, Danielle, sometimes when you have those moments or the practices where the mind is still and you just forget and you're in your body, so peaceful. But recently, yeah, my mind has just been cantering around the place, kind of neighing and kicking its heels and
kicking in the stalls. Let me run, let me think. I guess that's kind of what meditation is, right? The mind's like a horse and you're trying to break the horse and the horse is just trying to get out of the stall. No, let me run, let me go over here.
Yeah, my mind has been recently very busy too. I'm aware of the busyness of the mind. I'm not trying to stop it. I'm trying to come up with some practices where I can redirect it. So, for example, if it's busy, there's no need to stop it. But I was like, okay, can I stop focusing on that thing? Can I focus on something else? So whether it's a mantra, whether it's chanting something, just keep redirecting. So my mind has been very active. I feel like there's a bit of creative juices coming up. And one of the way it expresses itself is through creating some stories. So I went to the hairdresser the other day and then she mentioned, I think all these people will die after getting all these vaccines. And then I come home and then my mind was like, okay, what am I going to do with all these dead bodies? Where am I going to be? How am I going to live? I got to get some cattle to be able to survive because most of the people will be dead. I don't know. And the story is like that. And it goes and just create a story. And it's actually quite creative because it creates the whole line and the whole living condition and just going through the horror and everything. So, and that's kind of fascinating because I want to be in that story. It's kind of fun, but at the same time I'm realizing that I'm not here, I'm not present, I'm in the story, even though it's interesting, but it's not presence. So I try to kind of stop doing that and bring myself back here and focus on something different.
Yeah, it can be so compelling, these stories sometimes that our minds can throw up, but just fascinating and so detailed. Sometimes the stories that my mind at the moment is coming up with is like, where'd you get this detail? It's creating these things that I didn't even know I knew anything about, But yes, no, it is pulling it back and realizing it's just a distraction, really. It's just the mind trying to bombard thoughts to distract, And it's really hit home to me recently because I'd sometimes, when you follow the stories and you get sucked into them because they're kind of interesting and you like them and you think about them more than you should, then it's almost like, I think I read somewhere that it's like your body reacts physiologically to that story as if it was happening to you because it can't tell the difference between truth and imagination. And sometimes my body will go into this reaction about the story, and it's been interesting because I've kind of gone down a couple of those roads recently, and I was pulled back, and I was very glad I was pulled back, and I was able to see just how time wasting it is, and also how indulgent it is on my part, because for me, growing up, there was always a bit of an element of fantasy. So I'd escape reality by having a little fantasy thought or a little dream about something or whatever it was. And as I've grown older recently, it's changed. So it's no longer a fantasy. It's more of a kind of, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but there's a different quality to it. So it's not quite so clear cut that it's a fantasy. It's like the way the mind can fool you or the ego can fool you into thinking that it's something else that's happening. But I was able to see recently that that was what was going on. And I thought, oh my God, I've wasted so much time doing this. I keep telling myself I'm too busy to do things. I'm too busy to edit the podcasts. I'm too busy to, be a good student in the WLS group. I'm much too busy, but I've got hours to spend on these fantasies that aren't real. They're not connected to anything and they're completely unproductive. So that was really good to be able to see that and go, oh God. And since then, I've just, whenever a thought comes up or the sort of fantasy or story, I've just gone, nope, okay, I'm ignoring that. And I'm just carrying on doing things. And it's only been for the past, week or so, but I've got so much more done. Suddenly I'm so much more productive to the point where, I'm getting things done in one evening when I get back from work that would have taken me a week before. So yes, I think I can sometimes indulge the mind too much. And because my mind thinks of things from lots of different angles, it kind of creates different perspectives on things. And because of that, it can make it very, very real and fool me sometimes into thinking that it's important. And it's really not. None of it's important. It's just get on with your life and stop being such a drama queen, is what I've sort of been telling myself recently. And that's helping. That's working. It's good. Anyway.
You were talking about indulging. And I would say that indulging is also, that's what I've noticed, that my mind wants to indulge and to make the story real. It feels that it's real. And as you say, there is bodily reaction to it. And I've noticed that too. And I think that's why it is indulging, because your body reacts and something happening to it. And this is where I was like, oh, this was fun. Oh, should I go back and think about that story again? I haven't been doing it a lot throughout the day. It was mostly in the morning or in the evening. But even then, there is no need for that. I mean, just being here and now is more important and more pleasant.
Yeah. Well, what I've been noticing for me is when I do that, rather than indulging in the story or the thought, I'm pulling back and going, why am I going off on a tangent with this thought? What is it that I'm trying to escape? Or what is it that I'm trying to avoid? And that's been really interesting. So let's say there's a fantasy about a different life, or, sometimes it might be living in a house with a garden, or it might be living by the sea, or different job, or losing weight, or all these things. And instead of going off into oh, that feels so nice, and this would be great, I'm going, well, what am I trying to avoid? And when I'm doing that and looking at what I'm trying to avoid, it's always the discomfort thing. It's, the avoidance of something that you don't like by superimposing something you do like on top of it. And that's been really helpful. So I can just go, okay, what am I trying to avoid? Let's work on clearing that. Okay, what is it that I don't like about either the situation or myself or something that's happening? Okay, let's clear that, and also not overindulging in the let's clear that thing as well, so it's just doing it as a matter of part of the day as opposed to getting bogged down in either side of it, if that makes sense. And that's been great. So, the past week or so, rather than fantasizing about being thinner, I'm actually eating less and I'm exercising, which is the way that most people normally do it, you know, as opposed to going off into little dreams. And that's been really good. It's just been a question of doing it and not enjoying it, but doing it, you know. So it's been quite an interesting week for that, just to shift perspectives on things, I feel.
Yes. I usually ask myself too, why am I thinking about it? What is it that gives me pleasure that I'm not receiving like right now in this moment in the present life? And usually there are answers. There was one time there was just thoughts keep coming and coming and coming, and I couldn't quite understand why. So I asked God the question and the answer came up for me. I was like, now I understand.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so it's something, because Jason rang me last week and there was something he said, I can't remember what you were talking about, but I said something like, oh yeah, and I do that and it's a bit shameful. And he said, why is it shameful? It's like wearing a black t-shirt or a blue t-shirt. Do you feel shameful when you wear one or the other? And that was really helpful. It was kind of like, no, it's just a question of just you're just doing it or not doing it. You know, there's no shameful or story or anything that has to be built around it. It's just stop doing it then. You know, put on a blue t-shirt instead, you know. Don't traumatize yourself about the black t-shirt, just take it off, you know. So that was interesting. Oh, Danielle's got her thinking face on.
I was just thinking that it's really good advice, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that's pretty difficult for people. I don't know where the programming comes up for stuff like that, where you get wrapped up in judging yourself over whatever it is that you're doing, because it could just be like, okay, I'm either watering the plants or I'm not, or I'm cleaning my house or I'm not. But then there's these stories about, I don't know, being a bad person for not cleaning your house, things like that. So it's like, ugh, where does this all come from?
Well, I guess it's that human need or desire to know why, you know, the what and the why, as opposed to just getting on with it, you know. So it's using the example of being overweight and not exercising. And I know it's only been a week, so it's brand new, but instead of just doing it, I was going, oh no, I've not been exercising. Oh, I've put on weight. Oh, I feel terrible about it. Oh God, this must mean that, you know, and there's some story about it. And instead of doing that, I've just been doing it. And there's not the thinking of, oh God, you know, I'm exercising, therefore that means I'm fitter or I'm whatever. It's just doing it because my body actually enjoys it. And I'd forgotten, it's been so long, I'd forgotten that my body actually likes to move and to get out of breath and turn up at work bright red and sweaty. So the vet goes, oh my God, what happened? You know? But yeah, I think it's just the mind overthinking again, just likes to go, well, why is this? And I'll create a story about that. And then I'll add a meaning for this and, you know, create an explanation for that. And it's just like, well, it just, all of that is just superimposed on what is happening, you know. It's, and my mind's really good at doing that. When I'm able to catch myself and take that step back and just look and go, no, you don't have to think about this one. You know, it's like you don't think about going to the toilet and what's happening and what have I eaten and how is it coming through, and sorry, this is probably a bit gross.
It's a good example though, because maybe some people do. You know, people micromanage their lives in that way, and then they can cause other sort of disruptions in their health because of it, because they're like, what is, they try to dissect everything that's going on with them. So
Very true.
Yeah, I don't think most of people try to dissect. I think they just think about it and don't even think why they think about it. They just think, and that's normal life. Okay, I just thought about that. Why do I want to even think? Why am I thinking about it? That's too much work. I'll just think.
Yeah.
I just meant more in terms of health problems. I think people like to really look at them, like, just because you're talking about bodily functions, right? So they dissect that. Oh, what did I eat yesterday? Okay, maybe that's why my, you know, this is happening this way and whatever. So
Yeah, but the thinking why, yeah, people, like you said, Katja, that people don't often think about why, is because that will give you answers you don't want, you know. So it's kind of, you'll think, but not take a step back and go, why am I overthinking? What am I avoiding? Because people don't like looking at the things they avoid. They'd much rather carry on avoiding them, you know. And that's been really shown to me recently, this past week, especially the things that I avoid. You know, I've really, over the past couple of months, but especially recently, I've been really seeing how everything's about consequences, you know. So it's, you do something and there's a consequence. You don't do something, there's a consequence. You think this way, there's a consequence, you know. And that's been really helpful, you know. So it's, you don't exercise, you get fat. You eat crap, you get fat, you know. You overthink and self-indulge yourself and avoid facing things in life, and they'll come and smack you in the head later, you know, or they'll come up in a different way. But everything has a consequence. So it's just, you know, physically, emotionally, energetically, all these different levels, there's consequences for everything. And I've just been more conscious of that in the last week. So, you know, the consequence of lying down on the sofa for an hour brings my energy down, whereas doing something else, cleaning something, or doing something that would bring my energy up, I'm noticing when that happens. So it's just trying to be in a more genuine and truthful place that I'm not always in, because I think I guess like a lot of people, but I definitely know that I can lie to myself very, very successfully. So I can tell myself I'm doing things really well, or I'm whatever label or story I want to, you know, put out about myself to myself. But recently I've just been digging under those and going, no, okay, the truth is actually, no, I'm not very good at that kind of thing. And I'm not very good at that thing. And I've not been doing that. And instead of beating myself up about it, just going, well, then I'll stop doing it. So I'll do something else, you know. And it's nice and simple. I mean, it's just, you know, it's only been a few days, I know, but it just makes, it's been a nice, easy week in that respect. And, you know, another thing Jason said, because we were talking about, you know, grief and fear and that kind of thing. And he was saying, yeah, he has loads that moves through, he just ignores it. And that was a bit of a, oh, yes moment, you know, when you, because sometimes you forget that you can just ignore it. You know, it kind of moves through and you kind of go, oh, I need to look at that because that's coming up. I should really just be aware of that, or I should, you know, sit with that. But instead you can just go, okay, there's a lot of sadness moving through, or there's a lot of grief moving through, or shame, or whatever it is. Just ignore it and get on with your day, you know. And that's been really helpful.
I just wanted to say that you talk about grief, and one of the stories that I've created, there was grief that came up. I was like, oh, I just wanted to feel the grief, so I'll feel it. That's okay. So it's kind of, you try to always indulge in pleasant emotions, but in this case, it was, you can call it, I guess, an unpleasant emotion, grief. So that was interesting. It was just fully coming up and flowing through my body. I was like, wow, I can create that. That's really interesting. I was like, okay, I'll feel it.
No, that is interesting. Yeah, because I guess sometimes, I mean, I find that for me, not, I'm not talking for you, but sometimes for me, when there's something like that coming up, grief or sadness or something like that, I'll add a story on it rather than just going, well, grief's moving through. I'll go, okay, so what am I grieving? Oh, yes, I'm grieving this. Oh, that's it. Yes, yes. I'll attach to that. I'm not saying you do this, but I do that sometimes. And it's kind of, then this whole thing comes up and it's like, now I have justification or sort of approval for feeling grief. I'm allowed to feel grief rather than just feeling grief, you know, or feeling whatever else. Because sometimes this past week, a lot of weird things have come up at random times. So I say I'm walking to work and it's a lovely sunny day, I'm in the trees, and suddenly I feel tears coming down my face. And it's like, why? But instead of going, oh no, I'm feeling sad, why? What's happening? I'm like, okay, I'm a little schizophrenic today, that's fine. You know? I'll wipe them before I get to work, you know.
No, I don't. I'm too busy feeling the thing. So I don't really have time to attach the story. Why am I feeling it? So I was like, it's here. So I got to stay here, because if I don't stay here, if I start attaching the story, then I'm not feeling the feeling.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's true for me. But in terms of what you were talking about, weight loss and stuff, it was actually good. My husband and I decided, when was it? About a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, that we're going to watch our calories. And I've been pretty good because I lost about 3 kilograms.
Oh, well
And
done.
I only have one to go. So
Yay!
yeah.
Very good.
I haven't been exercising a lot. I went out for a run and then realized, because I haven't run all winter, that my knees start hurting. So instead of stop doing it, I said, I'll just do run walk until I build up, because I was able to do almost 15K last summer, and now I couldn't even do 5K. But that's okay. I will get back and I'll just do little by little.
Great.
The weather has been miserable. It's been either we're wearing a t-shirt, the next day there's snow, t-shirt, then snow, t-shirt, then snow. And every time there is snow, I was like, okay, which country are we moving? Where are we moving? Which province? Where are we going? We can't live in here. It's just really snow, almost end of April. I'm done with it. Like the winters here are so long that this is the period where I was like, and there's no need to create a story. You just feel like you're done with it. And this is the time where everyone wants to move out. I talked to my friend. She's like, yeah, I'm in the same situation. We're moving out.
Wow. No, in April. Wow. That's great.
Yeah. And we had, I don't know, I haven't even checked the windows. We had a forecast calling for like 30 centimeters of snow.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
And we were wearing t-shirt and I got a full burn. Like everywhere. I was wearing t-shirt and shorts. We went cycling and everything. It was like 17 degrees, sunny, no wind, really gorgeous. And then snow the next day. I was like, ah. Anyway.
Oh my God.
That's not a story. That's a reality.
No, that's true. That's true.
Anyway, when we're not worried about anything, we create the stories.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do. No, I don't. Not all the time. I catch myself and stop doing it. There have been periods where I've been indulging. And that's the word that came up for me, is like, stop indulging, stop doing that. Do your practices. Be a good student.
But it's at those moments, isn't it? For me, anyway, it's at those moments when you hit a kind of plateau where you indulge, where the student, it's I think Aratima speaks about it when she says, everyone hits moments where the brain goes, oh, no, I've been there, done that. No, it's boring. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to really do the module this month. Nah, I've done it. I know it. I know what it's about, and I know my mind can do that for sure. But it's at those moments, I guess, I need to get more discipline and push through that, or just do it, just keep doing it. It's like Nike, not wanting to advertise Nike, but just do it,
Well, it's like with anything, right? You probably are experiencing it now with doing exercise, is that even if you start doing it for 5 minutes or something, then it's like you can start losing yourself in it almost, right? So if you sit down and you say, oh, I'm going to do this practice for 3 minutes, then it's like, oh, then you're doing the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah.
Or you're like me and you start doing practices and it doesn't matter what you do, your mind just keeps going. And then I'm like, well, at least I was doing something else while my mind was doing this, kind of. I can't really do both at the same time, but somehow it appears that way.
Yeah.
Somehow I can chant mantras and still have my mind thinking about other things.
But I think also because it's so busy out there in the world, I'm sure some of it is that too, because there's so much going on. There's so many thoughts flying around that, the collective consciousness is very, what's the word, frantic and jumping around. And there's so many thoughts that I'm sure we're picking up on some of that too. She says, hopefully.
Yeah. Actually, I had a recent trip to a farm where there was Hutteritz. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. It's like something like Amish, but they call themselves, I think it's Hutteritz, but I'm not too sure. Anyway, so we went to the farm. I didn't know. I just thought it was a regular farm. I was looking for my red wigglers to start my vermicompost. And the guy said, hey, if you buy something from my shop, then I'll give them to you for free. And then he sent me the link. I was like, yeah, sure. I said, do you have a farm? I was like, yeah. I was like, do you have lots of animals? He was like, yeah, we have lots of animals. He's like, can my kids come and see them? It's like, okay. I was quite actually far away. Good trip. It was almost like 2.5 hours one way. But I was like, well, it's fun. The kids will go check the animals. Then we're coming to that place and everyone wear these outfits and hats and then I was like, where did you bring me? I was like, I don't know. And I didn't even know the person I was talking about, because I just thought you'll come to the farm, then you meet the person and everything is fine. And there's lots of people in there. I was like, I was talking to somebody and I meant to get this order from somebody. And I said, oh, okay, I think it's this guy called Mark. Anyway, so we went there. The reason I started talking about it is because I think they have their own community. They don't go outside too often, maybe once a month, because they still need some supplies from the outside. And then they also deliver things. Actually, they do go once a week or twice a week to deliver because they're farmers to deliver their produce to the biggest city. They have freezers there, and then that clients can go pick them up. But my point about this whole story is that he spent about 2 hours with us, and the guy was actually pretty open. Like, you didn't feel any walls around him, and he was open and like quite honest. I mean, he was very honest. He would just say, hey, I've been, you got to treat your customers so they come back. So he's very honest about everything. He was just telling how he learned it. But his mind, like the state of mind, the state of being he was in, was very, very relaxed and very calm. And this is not something I've seen with any other regular person. So I was actually pretty impressed because he was just here. He was real. He was present. And I'm sure he's not enlightened or anything, but just that beingness at that present moment was very impressive to me. I was like, and I really enjoyed the company, and my husband did too. And of course, they didn't have any of the masks, and they were shaking hands. So it was very nice.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Really refreshing, getting away from people bouncing thoughts around all the time. Yeah. Nice. That's a great way to live. I mean, I don't know if I could do it, but just being, cut off like that and just getting on with life, just being, one with the earth and away from the cities. And yeah.
I think they have enough restrictions, which probably good for the discipline, because instead of thinking for himself, he doesn't get the money goes to the community. I mean, he does want to create a new community because the current one is getting too big. So he would probably be the main person of that community. So there is probably a bit of self-interest, but overall, because as I said, the restrictions out there. I think some communities are more restrictive than the others. So they do have electricity, they do have joint housing, but they have to, I think I was curious to learn more about them. And then I watched a little bit of, there was one lady who does some series where she talks about their life. So sometimes they get up super early, 5 or 4 o'clock, because they need to make a big meal for the community. Or there is something like that. But overall, I see a lot of joy. That's what I've seen, even though you do a lot of hard work. So there's definitely a good amount of discipline that needs to be done, because certain things you don't want to do, but you have to do it because it's for the community. It's not just for yourself. So from that point of view, it's good. But then again, you don't get a lot of freedom. I think a lot of choices. So that's where it can be, I can see a lot, kind of tough.
Mm. Yeah. But at the same time, there's freedom in that too. If you don't have the choices and you just live simply day to day and you're just present and everything is for the oneness, for the community, then that's a very beautiful thing in some ways. It's simple and it's down to earth in all senses of the word. And there's no complications, because we like to add so many complications to life when they really don't exist anywhere except in our minds. It is all very simple. And like you say, discipline is the thing. So I've started getting up extra early. So I need to get to work at 9. I've been getting up at 6 so I can do my practice and I can meditate, and then I can walk to work. It's like a work at the top of a hill. So it's a 45-minute hike, I guess you call it, uphill, and give a little time at the end so I can kind of stop being so red before I turn up for work. But that's been so nice. So it's that discipline, and also that connecting with God, connecting with earth, connecting to myself, I guess, that has made a lot of difference, because before I used to get up and go to work. So it was my day started with work, whereas now it's starting with me, and it's starting with God, and it's starting with grounding, and it's starting with exercise. And I'm really noticing the difference. I think it's a much better way of being. I'm enjoying that.
Mm. But that's true. I think I wish there was more people, like regular people, exercising similar lifestyle, because if they would be so busy, they would be much happier. Because you can see he was like a little child who was happy and talking, and like there was this purity about the guy. I was like, I wish I can see that more. All I see is a lot of walls and thoughts, and it's just, I mean, I remember Ratima mentioned that it's really nice sometimes being with people who are just they're just here, and they're just being themselves. And I couldn't really kind of quite understand it. And then when I talked to this guy, I was like, now I see what she was talking about. There was no pushing or pulling from any direction. It was just this, just being themselves, just like a child. I was like, I wish I can see more of that in a regular lifestyle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that people of the earth, people, living the way that you really should be living. And you raised a good point in that if you're busy, you don't have time to self-indulge. You don't have time for the mind to go off and create all these stories. And because that's one of the luxuries of having too much time. Whereas this community you're talking about, and Amish communities and other ones, they live as people should live, with the seasons. They rise with the sun, go to bed with the sun, and it's all hard work. And then you're tired in the evening and you sleep well, and you get up and you work hard, and you're tired in the evening and you sleep well, rather than just sitting on your bum looking at a computer screen for 8 hours a day, like most of us do, doesn't really tire us out in the right way. And just being outside and just having that purity of spirit, I think it's so important. And like you said, absolutely, I'd love to be more like that myself, and to see more of that in the world as well, because there's an innocence to it. It's the way that there's no artifice, there's no sophistication and contrivance to it. It's just honest. I guess it's truthful, it's honest, an honest way of being, isn't it?
I imagine that they're not bombarded by media either in those communities. Usually they don't have like television and stuff like that. So I think that kind of also plays a role.
No, for sure. But I think they've been allowed to have mobile phones or the computers just because they need to keep their farming competitive. But I don't think they spend a lot of time they don't have TVs, but they probably do have some access to the internet. I don't know if everyone does, or just certain people who needs it, that I don't know. Because this girl that was doing the series, she had a mobile phone and she was recording, and people were asking, are you actually allowed to do that? And she said, depending on the community. In some communities so strict that they don't even do that, but in our community is not as strict. So they even have a huge swimming pool and like amazing cooking facilities. I was like, oh wow, I wish I had those. But it's all industrial because they produce for good amount of people for the community, and then they also need to sell. So it's quite industrialized. So there was, and I think it was mostly men who does it. I mean, again, it was the season also, but because it's quite flat, there was no trees. I felt like the beauty is lacking here. I mean, there was beauty in the being. That's why I found the beauty, but not the beauty in the land itself, or in the way you would create, I don't know, the way I would create things that would be different.
Yeah. Yeah, beauty is very important. Yeah. But I think communities are so important too. I think living in the cities, often that can be lost. I mean, there are sort of pockets, like in London, there's a pocket where I work, it's in Highgate, and it's a very close-knit community. It's very, very strong. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone looks out for everyone. Everyone knows each other's business, kind of thing. And it's lovely. It's like a little village. So working there is really nice because you get to know people and you get to know the community, and people really do a lot for the community as well. So there's a lot of volunteering and helping each other out, all this kind of thing, which I find lovely. It doesn't happen so much around where I live. So I guess it depends where, what area you live in, but it does make all the difference. It's so nice. Working as part of a group, part of a team does make all the difference.
Yeah. But in terms of talking about the topic, that what I would do when we're not worried, well, this community don't have a lot of worries. I'm sure there's some, but because they're so busy in doing things and they're so busy in the moment that they're doing, they don't really have a lot of things to worry about.
Yeah.
You don't have, once you live for the community, you don't need to worry about, I don't know, what you need to buy or what the next things that you want. Or I can see that a lot of that is eliminated. So it's more simple. I'm sure if you really was born to be free and the community is limiting in terms of the beliefs and certain things, so I can see that can be a limitation. But I think for the majority of people, I can see the benefit from the lifestyle like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So just get yourself busy, just keep doing things, and then the mind doesn't have time to do anything else. It's too busy to, I don't know, having a huge list of things to do and being present with those things and try to accomplish them on time. And then you don't have the luxury of time to think and create the stories.
The end. Thank you very much for listening.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
No. Something that I was actually thinking about earlier is that people can also use being busy as an avoidance technique, though. So it's like, yeah, it would be great to say, just be as busy as possible and, just focus on that. But as long as you're actually being present with it and not at the same time pushing away whatever you're not, or you're trying to avoid, I suppose. Because you could be busy and still just kind of forcing those worries or those thoughts into your subconscious or into the background, and that doesn't seem like it would be very good. I imagine it would manifest in unhealthy ways. So.
And you can't escape them either, because when you do that, that's when you wake up in the middle of the night having panic attacks and all these things that people can do.
Yeah, I don't know where you have a heart attack. I was like, I didn't even know I was stressed out.
Yeah, that's a good point, Danielle. It's a good point.
I mean, there's definitely room for both, because having too much time, I can see, because sometimes on the weekends, like I would always almost dread Saturdays recently, because I was like, I have nothing to do on Saturday. I was like,
well, I'll swap with you.
I probably would do that gladly. I'd most likely prefer to have days where I have at least something to do for part of the day, so I can structure my day around it or something. But sometimes having an entire day open, I was like, what's the mind gonna do now? What story am I gonna be thrust into thinking about? And just, sometimes it makes it so real, even though nothing's happening physically around you. It just makes these stories, and it's just stuck in there on something, and for whatever reason can't move past it or just shift gears for whatever reason.
But I think it also depends on our constitution, right? Because Danielle, you're always very active, you're always doing something. So for you, it could be stop doing something and just be here or be present with what you're doing, right? And for Kim and I mean, I think sometimes if we have a bit of luxury either before going to bed, even for me, like it's late, I should be sleeping, but I want to indulge in thinking. So for me, sometimes it's just, I've recently structured my days pretty well. So I'm constantly busy and I'm sometimes running to do things and try to get them on time. And I've been enjoying it because I'm not procrastinating. I've been just busy and things are happening. I mean, there is areas where I need to address because I have that, that block that I don't want to do that. But I'm aware of that. And I know that one day I'll have to come back to it and do it. I'm consciously avoiding it. I'm making a choice to avoid it. And I'm aware that I'm making the choice to avoid it. But I'll have to stop doing it at some point.
Those are the funny ones, aren't they? When you consciously avoid something because you're like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then the mind thinks about it constantly. So you might as well just do it. I do that sometimes. Yeah. I know. So that was our conversation on what the mind does when it doesn't have anything to worry about. Yeah. Thank you for listening. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the bell button to make sure you get notification about our future podcasts, and please share with your friends and like us. Thanks for listening. Bye.